Welcome to Multicultural Center podcast funded by IB Polska. And today's episode is about agriculture and permaculture. And we're going to talk about it with our guest today, Antoine. Welcome, Antoine.
Thank you, Kaur.
So please let us know a little bit about your background.
Sure, thank you. And first, thank you again and for the Multicultural Center and for you for hosting this beautiful, amazing podcast.
Thank you.
I have had friends who have already been in the podcast before, so I have listened and I really appreciate what you're doing. It's super beautiful.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your kind words.
So basically, my name is Antoine. I, for not a very long time, but for some time in my life, I just started getting more and more involved with the food that we eat and more interested in this topic for various reasons, And then eventually from the food, I started going into the agriculture, understanding the vegetables, the food, the land, and the whole culture around it, I would say. Because there is a lot of things involved in our food, how we prepare it, how we grow it, and how this affects ourselves, I would say, and the people around. And then this just kind of became a big topic of interest in my life, and I started researching more and more, reading, volunteering in a lot of places. I think this is one of the most beautiful parts when you can actually get involved.
Yeah, to get to know and learn something new.
Yeah, and not necessarily, you need to go out and spend a year in a farm, but even sometimes just once a week or once in your lifetime, just going somewhere for the weekend, traveling or just touristing, I would say, or looking for some community, where you can learn more about food and the land.
And how long you're living in Krakow?
It has been 6 years now. I'm going to celebrate in the middle of the month.
Perfect. And how was your experience living in Krakow?
So I would say I learned a lot specifically about food, right? I learned a lot about multiculturalism, about living somewhere abroad. But focusing on the food, I would say that I learned especially to look at my surrounding, to what is around me, what kind of food is around. Because many times I went to the supermarket and I got a banana, for example, or I got a mango. And I paid a lot of money. And unfortunately, this fruit was tasting like a medicine. It was tasting like a syrup, from the normal big shops that you can find around. And then it just made me really frustrated because, I was looking for some good experience for good food, and I was, preparing something delicious back at home, and then I was not really getting what I used to know from back home, from Brazil, for example, where the mangoes can be found on the floor, below the tree.
And it tastes different here as well.
Yes,
I think it's
different.
Most of the food here, it's tastes like sour, then sweet.
Yeah.
So this is what I experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I think I just kind of started connecting the dots that it really made sense that I should be looking more for the food and for the things that were growing in the surroundings, because they were going to be fresher, they were going to be better in taste, they were going to be cheaper, and I was also going to be able to understand where this food was actually coming from. Because if you look in these little signs in the markets, you will see that, for example, mangoes are coming from Brazil or from India, South America or Asia in general. So they come by plane and they're harvested when they're green. There's tons of different treatments. They apply products to it so that it doesn't go bad. So there is a lot going on behind so that this product arrives here, and then it's still a product and not a food, basically. It's seen as a product.
So it's also dangerous for us to eat those foods that actually maybe chemically they treated those foods.
Absolutely.
Don't you think maybe this is the main reason that people are getting sick because of that?
Yeah.
So what was your experience when you come to Krakow, and what is your general maybe difference you can give us between Brazil and Poland?
Yeah, so I think there's a ton of differences. And starting with the climate and adapting to the different culture, and generally in Brazil, people are more open, more talkative, and there is all sorts of food all year round. And, I would say that it took me some time to learn the cool places like here, the Multicultural Center, that I can come and know more, meet new people, know more about the Polish culture as well.
Yeah.
I really tried to learn as much as I could, about the country, about the whole culture, the food, the language, and what are the hobbies of people. One thing that I'm proud of and I really liked when I came here is that every fall for the 6 years, people were going to the forest and they went to collect mushrooms. And this, for me, was something completely new and different.
So you never go and pick up in Brazil mushroom? I thought like there is a big forest.
Yes, there is. But this is something small. Only a small group of people are doing this. And this is where the culture and, this kind of, it really comes up, right? The knowledge of something specific.
Yeah.
Because then in Brazil, people know about mangoes, they know about bananas, they know about a whole different things, but they don't know nothing about mushrooms.
Yeah, because I also went once with my partner. And then, because it's like a hill. You have to find mushroom down there, right? So it's like very hard, and I was so scared to even though go and pick up mushroom because I was like, I'm not going to risk my leg over mushroom to pick. Yeah. But it's like experience, I think. It's like different experience you have.
Absolutely.
So like, how was your, like, if we talk about people generally? So, because I think mostly people who come from abroad, the biggest challenge they face here is language. Yeah. How was your experience on that?
I would say that this is still kind of a struggle. Just the other day I had to go to the mechanic to fix my car. And, I had to mix a little bit of mimics, a little bit of my broken Polish, a little bit of English, because it's nice, it's Krakow. People do know some words and some phrases, so it's very helpful. Or if not necessarily the one person in charge or, the people in charge, they don't speak. Maybe someone is passing by or something is happening. Or, we also have our phones nowadays, right? It's super
it's
easy.
Like a Google Translate. Yeah. I think without Google Translate, we will not even exist here. So
my best friend.
Yeah, best friend. So one of our best friends.
And then, then this, I struggle a little bit, but still go by.
Oh, perfect. So how you come across with Multicultural Center?
I just try to come and I see this beautiful community that it has been forming still. It's, work in progress, I see. There are a few things and projects going on around Krakow, especially. And one of the coolest ones that I know, it's called Krakowska Farma Miejska, which is a group of people who have come up with this project, this plan, to have a community garden in Krakow where they would be growing vegetables, but you could just come and help and learn and, be part of this community in a piece of land which is given, borrowed. I'm not exactly sure of the bureaucracy, behind, but basically there is this land available, and this group of leaders, let's say, who are, going every day, watering the plants, making sure everything is up and running in the systematic, organized, and respectful way. And basically, people come, prepare beds, gardens of vegetables. We come and loosen the soil a little bit. We dig the compost and we put in some good compost into the soil. So everything is organic, everything is like natural. People are usually very open-minded there. So it's also a place like the Multicultural Center where you can feel safe, where you can feel welcomed. And there's a lot of foreigners as well, a lot of local people. So it's also good to have this understanding of, for example, what are the plants which are growing in the season? How are they growing? How are they preparing them? How are they cooking? Are they cooking? Are they frying? Are they eating fresh? For example, the other day I was there and I was preparing one of the gardens, and then I looked and, it's like a organized mess. Because there is weed growing, but this weed will serve as this natural fertilizer because it's just going to be laid on the ground and then planted on the top. They put some compost and then they prepare the bed. But if you don't have this knowledge or this the perception that, for example, I looked at a garden and I thought, oh, this is just a bunch of wheat, but it was actually the flower of rucola, of this. It's some kind of a salad, basically a leaf. So, and it was the flower, but I knew only the leaf, you know. And I was asking the guy, can I just, you know, cut this down or prepare this garden? I was like, no, no, no. You should eat it first and try, and then you let me know if you know what it is. And then, you know, I went and I grabbed a piece and I was eating.
And how was it?
And it was super spicy and it was super good. And it was something that I was not ready for.
It's like a spice thing.
Yeah, you know, like this little bit of like a ginger kind of a feeling, you know, like a little bit like burning and bitter, but super good on the salads and this kind of things.
But like when we talk about like this garden, community garden, so in this one you will go once, you maybe grow some veggies, but you also go for water. You have to give a water to plants, no?
Yes.
So how this activity works then?
So basically, there is the automated irrigation system in this particular place that people can just switch it on and then it irrigates the whole piece of land. And then as well, there is a group of people, I know at least a couple of them, that they go every day and then they make sure that it's running. The bare minimum is running. And then the people come as an additional resource to this project.
So that is something new for me, even though, because in India, what we do, we just maybe put the maybe the first I think roots, or maybe some we call it like seeds.
Yeah.
And then if it grow, we also put like water, but we keep this water permanently there, but we close it everywhere. But it's not running.
Ah, okay.
So we keep it inside this water, because especially with rice we do that.
Right, yes.
So because rice require more water to grow.
Absolutely.
So we just keep it like, we close it, this area, and it will be like stuck. Water will be stuck there. It won't be like running, coming and going.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
it doesn't work like this in India. So especially in Punjab region where I'm from, we are doing something like this. I don't know if some other agriculture people, they do something differently.
Yeah, I think there are so many different techniques and this is a really beautiful one. Yeah. This is also common in Brazil, especially for rice. I think it's very common to have in even other plants, but especially for rice, they have this kind of channels, right? Where they open and close this door, right? And then the water comes, or it stays there, or there's
nowadays like plastic pipes, you can also use it to give water to your crops.
Yeah.
So you talk about Brazil. With Brazil, when we talk about agriculture, do you had any experience there?
Yes, I had a very happy and very joyful experience. I would say an adventure in my life. There was a period of my life that I was really bored and I was really fed up with the city and with my job. I used to work in a big corporation and things were not going in the right direction. The company got bought by another, so I didn't have a job or a work, actually, you know, something to do, basically, an assignment for some time. And then I said, you know what, I'm just gonna take some time off. I'm gonna take a year off and then try to find something else in which I can discover more about myself and I can, you know, learn more about the world in general. And it was nice because during this time I was doing a lot of sports, I was eating very healthy, and I was really trying to be more out in, you know, in contact with the land, in the rivers, waterfalls, and, you know, nature, let's call it. And then I decided to move to my uncle's farm in the very countryside of Brazil, in the border with Bolivia, in a place which is like very wild, very remote, and it was basically a cattle farm, so for beef.
Okay.
And then for 6 months, my first assignment was to start a vegetable garden because there was no vegetables in the farm at that moment. There was a lot of cattle, a lot of animals, pigs, chickens, and this kind of things, mostly animals. But there was not even a single lettuce or beetroot, you know, even herbs for the tea. There were none. And then I, with the guidance of my uncle and the people in the farm around, because, you know, they're very knowledgeable because they spend their whole lives there. And I grew up on a flat so in a big city.
Oh, yeah. How it was a shock or no?
Complete shock.
Because for me, if I decide like now to move back and turn to do agriculture again, it will be terrible for me for sure.
Completely.
So when you grow, you just only grow veggies there, not like a proper, like we say, rice or maybe flour.
Yeah, no rice, no grains in the
so
general.
not like a big level, but like a small way.
Exactly.
Okay, so you can give us some advice on sustainable ways to do maybe agriculture, especially for like maybe at home people who are working at home.
Yeah.
Do you have any maybe example for us?
Yeah, I think you can start, obviously depends on the amount of space you have and the amount of sunlight that you have. But for a very long time of my life, and here in Krakow, I was planting in my balcony in some kind of vases or pots, you know.
But sunlight is nowhere to found.
So. Yeah, you need sunlight, definitely. At least 6 hours of direct sun a day. If you don't, then you can have a lot of ornamental plants. And then, but if you still want to grow your vegetables and be more in contact, you know, with food in general, I would say to go to this kind of communities, like this one example that I mentioned, the Krakowska Farma Miejska. I know that here and there on Facebook, you can also find some groups of people who are just interested in having a community like this. So it's also worth searching, you know, in your community, what's closest to you.
If you grow veggies there, can you take home when it's done and eat it?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So then when things start
That's a good idea.
Yeah. You can collect the things that you're helping to grow. So for example, right now, in season, you can find spinach, radishes, kale, a lot of like rucola, as I was saying.
Maybe grow green chili as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Green chili, red chili.
Yeah.
Definitely for Indian people, it will be good to go to community garden and grow your own chilies. So it would be a good experience.
Yeah, and this is where the fun starts.
Yeah.
Because then you need to start learning about each and every plant. So chili, for example, you need to have it here in a greenhouse in Poland because it's too cold. The summer period is so short, it's so limited, that then you have to extend the warmth inside of a greenhouse. So tomatoes, green chilies, the eggplants, and some other different plants, vegetables, they're growing inside of these greenhouses, which is also a very cool method of being able to extend your growing season and growing different kind of vegetables.
Yeah, so normally when we talk about different techniques, as you mentioned before, so when we talk about Brazil and Krakow, as you're doing right now, do you feel any difference between those techniques to growing crops or like maybe small veggies?
I would say that a little bit, yes, because of the climate. But, you know, there are some general rules that you can apply. So I am really a big advocate of the natural farming, the organic farming. So basically using compost, using everything which comes from the land, from nature itself. So if you're going to apply some liquid, always like liquid from the worms or from the composted cow dung or the chicken dung, you know, the natural ways. And then not really moving the soil so much or so deep. And always, for example, in the hot climates, people really tend to cover the soil very well and very much. In the cold climates, not so much. And it kind of depends where this rule really applies. Also, there's a big problem with slugs and things like this, especially in the cold, humid countries, where it's not so humid, then you don't have so much this problem. So there are some things that you have to observe in nature, and usually the best way to do this is literally just going out in the forest, going out in the mountains, in the rivers, in the natural places, and observing the land. What is growing there? How is it growing? Even such things as specific plants. So, for example, one plant that you can find everywhere here in Poland is the dandelion, which is this mleczarnia, this yellow flower, which then becomes these beautiful seeds that we blow, and then they fly away.
Yeah. We also have in India this.
Yeah. So this is an indicator that the soil is very good, it's very rich in nutrients.
Okay.
And it also helps to open up the soil with its very deep and strong roots. So it's also telling that soil, even though it's rich, it's a little bit compacted. So every plant has the potential to tell you something about the land and the surrounding, the climate, and everything.
Everything around it.
Yeah.
Okay. So normally when we talk about India, just example, as you said, pesticides, and like you have to use it a sustainable way to growing maybe veggies. But I think nowadays pesticides is become like a part of people's life.
Yes.
And despite being, if you feel like your food comes from maybe being in Poland, maybe comes from Brazil or maybe comes from India, you don't know how it made. So what is your maybe advice to our viewer who is watching today to maybe avoid such things and maybe get to know where your food come from?
Yeah, I think the first step is really the information. Is to just open yourself up to this possibility that it may be possible to have the greatest vegetables and fruits without the pesticide. And in fact, it is the only way that you can conserve the full flavor and the full potential of the plants. And it's literally just going into the farmers markets, to the targs. So for example, in Krakow we have Stary Kleparz, we have Pietruszkowy, which is dedicated for organic farmers and organic produce. They also have a section with the conventional, but you tend to see more the organic food. There is also a few other places. In general, you have, if not direct contact with the farmer, it's somebody very close, maybe just one person in between. And I think this is really the best way to understand where your food comes from. And also to see what's in season, what's growing, what's really from that region, because even in Poland things may vary, right? So here in the south we find ocypek more frequent than in the other places, for example. And it's also, I think, a little of having fun, because it's like every time I go I try to pay attention to some things that I'm normally not really used to, and trying to use that food in a different way. So recently I got to know about this, it's a leaf, it's a spice called czosnek niedźwiedź, which is basically wild garlic, and it has such a pungent and strong taste of garlic. And I never heard about this before, and I only got to know because I went to one of those markets. And then people started telling me that this grows naturally, it's from the region, and it can replace garlic, and it's super healthy, it's super good for the stomach. It has a lot of vitamin C and other properties,
Yeah, I think garlic is also not that much pure, because I heard some news from especially India that they have like a garlic coming from China, and it's not safe, and it can cause even cancer for you. And this is what I heard. But I think it's like sustainable food is very important for everyone. But because of this fast life people have, it's hard to maybe, even though research, I know research is one of the topic, but I think maybe people will be more aware and they try to do something extra. But how has your life changed since you started maybe farming?
That's I would say, beautiful question, because it brings me some beautiful moments and very good feelings, because I would say it's a very joyful activity to being and putting my hands on the soil and learning about the food and being in contact with the people behind this, especially with the natural farming, because I feel like there is this different aspect, there's a different energy, there's a different feeling and perspective about it. As we were saying, everyone is such in a hurry and a rush, and we are not really thinking about the most important things in life, which is the family, cooking together, and spending time in the garden together. Many times when I went to my parents-in-law garden, we were all working together in the garden, and so I think it really helped me to understand more about myself, because it's this moment that, you really have to reflect on what are you growing, what are you putting into the soil, what are you giving to people, and what are you giving yourself as well, how you're nurturing yourself. So it made me feel physically much better, mentally much better as well, and just in contact with this positivity. Whereas I can also feel the opposite. Just if you look a little bit about the conventional farming, about the green revolution, when all of these things were really getting started, it was in the period that the many wars were going on. The First and the Second World War were going on. So a lot of these things, they are residues of the war, chemicals, tractors came from the tanks. A lot of the pesticides came from these components, these chemicals that they were throwing in Vietnam, for example, to remove the leaves of the trees so that they could be able to see the Vietnamese soldiers. So it's very sad, and it's this bellic energy. It's like very destructive. Pesticide is killing everything. The fertilizer is just pushing the plant to grow, beyond its capacity of actually doing it with time, with the sun.
Naturally, it's not natural. I think with the pesticides, we also face a lot of issue in our region, in Punjab, because I heard some of places that people even got cancer just because of this pesticides. Like they are putting on crops and they are selling those crops.
Yes.
But just imagine that people who are actually next to those crops, they are getting cancer, and what will happen, people who are eating that food?
Yeah, kids, elder people, everyone.
Yeah, and it's sustainable. I think nowadays people is more maybe into getting the profits, more money, than maybe other person's health. No one is considering about that.
Yeah.
That's the reason I think people needs to get more aware of sustainable ways to grow.
Absolutely.
So what is your, maybe when we move to another country, especially like places like India, even Brazil, so we have like a specific food that we crave. So what is your favorite food that you crave?
I think I'm a big fan of rice and beans.
So you can get it here, no?
Yeah, definitely. And then in general, just the tropical fruits as well. But I also really love, berries, and soon it's going to be berry season here in Poland. So
yeah, I think it's quite a lot of food in Poland itself, like the seasonal fruits.
Yeah.
And it's quite tasty.
Yeah. Luckily for us, yes.
Right. Anything you want to add, or maybe let us know that maybe you feel like we are not aware of?
I think I would just like to leave a message for everyone that I really encourage people to, have fun in this process of trying to look around yourselves, trying to look at what's around you in general. What are the plants, what are the foods, and how are people relating to the land, and how are they really treating their health? Because I think we can get a lot of inspiration, and we can get a lot of good things from just looking around and being curious, and just really paying attention to the small things.
Thank you, Antoine, for joining us today.
Thank you, Kaur. Thank you for setting this up and for also sharing your experiences.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and stay tuned for more episodes like this. Have a nice day. Bye.